And we are back. To any future viewers who watch these non live, my apologies for the chaotic live stream jumble. I will later of when certain topics actually were talked about. The internet crashed the last stream, but hopefully we're good to go now. Thank you to Voider, who seems to have. Nope, we're not good to go now. Okay, maybe. We'll see. Thank you to Voider, who seems to have stuck around, and maybe we're not working again. Maybe we're still glitchy. How's it looking on your end, folks? So, we're going to roll with it for a minute and hope that the glitchiness is like little bumps in a wave that slowly steady out. Maybe we can find an example of that graphically. If we were to, for example, want to look at, and I'm going to pull up a graph now, the one that looked kind of like waves were certain tan functions, not just tan of x, but maybe if we stick a tan somewhere on there, like tan of y equals sine of x, gives us some normal waves. Maybe if we square one of those, we'll get, ooh, very wacky. So, quite wacky of waves here. And let's see what happened if we did something else. And the reason what I'm trying to do here is squish them somehow. So maybe this is a weird type of squish, but maybe some sort of, woo, we got an infinity symbol. Maybe some type of glitchiness like we're going through with the internet is like bump, 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 and then it will steady out. Hopefully not go through the other side of bumps like this equation has. That's fun that we got another infinity symbol, though. Always love when those pop up in our super simple equations. This isn't the only very simple tangent-related one that they pop up in. We can also say the sine of x squared... Whoa! The sine of x squared equals... Well, let's try sine of y squared equals the tangent of x squared. Oh, we got it sideways. Let me swap these. Y, X. And there we got another type of infinity symbol. Those are always fun. And they are going to occur in the next episode that I was hinting at this topic at the end of the last stream. Sorry, it got really jumbled and chaotic probably. Hopefully it made sense. But we were looking at a family of equations that might fit a simple sounding question. What sets of numbers have the same sum and product? Now, we are not going to restrict ourselves to the numbers being different. We're going to allow duplicates in a set, but the sum of all of them has to be the product of all of them. And we are sometimes going to ask about allowing any number or any real number. And then we could look for things like rational solutions or even irrational solutions. And sometimes we might ask, are there any that are just whole positive numbers? Such as the classic, let me type these somewhere random. I'll type them here even though they won't be a graph. Such as the classic 2 times 2, which we'll put in parentheses so they don't think it's an x, equals 2 plus 2. And the classic 1 times 2 times 3 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3. I've already loved these identities and mentioned them as part of other families, but they're the main focus of the seed of something for the episode coming out this Sunday. And if we want to unravel questions about how many things fit this definition, well, if I allow one element sets to consider that to be the sum to be itself and the product to be itself, then any natural number would fit. So depending on if I allow the definition, a single element set can count its sum and its product as itself, then level 1 of this whole idea, one element sets, kind of could have an infinite amount if I'm allowing that. So theoretically, I could write in an equation or in a more of a sequence, if I was writing, for example, a version of what the OEIS, Online Encyclopedia of Integer Sequences, would have, but they don't like to put infinity symbols. when something is infinite, they have to do a workaround. Like they will make a note saying something like, in this case, -1 represents infinity or something. And one place that the infinity symbol came up in a sequence before is how many regular, convex, or you could even just say regular in general, polytopes exist in a given dimension. And there's 1, then infinity on the second dimension, and then finite amounts on future dimensions. And so that sequence can go something like 1, infinity, then this other number, and so on. And that showed up in the episode I called the Hyperdice sequence. But now we're going to, get another infinity symbol. I didn't write it as a sequence, but it's on a big table of numbers where level 1 got an infinity symbol. What about level 2 and 3? Do you think there's other solutions to these? Well, that's something you can try and fiddle around with, and you can try and, if you want, see if there's any for 4. Are there any 4 numbers that fit this property? Now, if any of you crack it, maybe don't leave it in a comment here. I don't know if anyone has already, but maybe just save it to yourself if you crack any of them so everyone can work on it as their own brain teaser until I drop the episode in about 2 days explaining, a lot behind this. What we will look at in a second, since I have this graph open, is we're going to deconstruct looking at just level 2. And we're going to deconstruct a little further than my episode's going to go, maybe spoiling 1 or 2 things that are in the first 5 minutes of the episode. But, most of the episode is about larger levels with positive integer solutions. And I'm going to give you a little spoiler about level 2 you may have already known, which is that these are the only 2 positive integers that can do that. I can't come up with another 2 positive integers, meaning, a whole number and we're not letting 0 in the mix, that have this property. And we could prove that. This I didn't go into my episode, because in the episode I left it sort of up to you guys. You can try and prove them to yourself if you want to really work your brain. But to go through a little way you would prove a higher level, for 2, it's kind of easy because any 2 numbers, if they're both larger than 2, the product's going to be bigger than the sum. And so they have to be either both 2 or less, or at least one of them even less than 2. So the only way one of them could be more than 2 is if the other one was 1. And then we can try and think in our head, does it work for one of them to be 1 here? That would mean something, we'll call it A, times 1 equals A plus 1. That doesn't make sense that A times 1, which is A itself, would be A plus 1. So we can think through why 1 wouldn't work to be one of the numbers, and why if 1 isn't one of the numbers, then the other ones either have to be 2, 2, or are guaranteed to have the sum smaller than the product. So larger levels have more wiggle room, but they have their own limits. There are some numbers that are too big to be in a given size of level unless it's just combined with only 1s essentially, and even that often doesn't work, to make the product equal the sum, because the product is usually bigger than the sum if we're talking about positive integers. However, there are answers beyond, I wouldn't be making an episode if there was nothing on the future levels or sizes. I'll leave it up to you to figure out what exactly might exist on levels 4, 5, 6, or whatever. Or you can wait till I answer it on Sunday in the episode. On the main channel, to note, this one, like I said in the last stream, is my Demotro channel that happens to be called Combo Class Bonus, but I'm probably going to switch this name to like Demotro from Combo Class or something. This is basically my personal playground compared to my TV show. But the TV show will have an episode this Sunday probably about what's going on in those further levels. Right now, though, you can see I basically did a simple proof without writing down the formalities of it, that this is the only solution of positive integers for level 2. But for fun, let's say we didn't need them to be positive integers, because that's its own little question. So there is part of the episode, part of the first 10 minutes goes into how can we use graphs to look into this question of two numbers that have the same sum as the product, three numbers that have the same sum as product, or onward. Now it gets harder with three numbers. Three variables, I need a 3D graph or some type of slider and a bunch of something or another. We go into that in the episode, so we're not going to be doing the 3 case right now. Maybe algebraically in a minute, but geometrically, we'll just look at the 2 case. Because although, this is 1 minute out of the episode that's coming anyway, we'll go a little deeper into that 1 minute of the episode right now. And it is the first of my episodes on the main channel that has Desmos graphs in it, which I'll probably work into more of them. It turned out to be a really good visual tool to what I was trying to explain, to not only say algebraically why stuff was happening, but to have some Desmos graphs. So that's going to make the episode extra digestible and, always good to look at something from multiple lenses. So, and the simplest way to try and achieve seeing something in multiple lenses is to ask, if I know it in an algebraic way, try and get it in a geometric way. If I know it in a geometric way, try and get it in an algebraic way. If I know it in neither, try and get it in either. If I know it in both, what other way can I get it in? But algebraic versus geometric is a good start to have 2 different ways of analyzing a topic. So right here, what we're going to do is abandon our fun graph with the infinity symbol. And we're going to go to a different type of infinity. We're going to go to something that has 2 curvy sections. Now, don't sue me if you would call this whole thing one curve. I may refer to it as 2 curves because there's 2 curvy bits, but I'm graphing one quote curve in a way. So what we're going to check on this graph is we were looking for 2 numbers who multiplied to the same thing they added to. Hey, I got 2 variables right here. 2 variables algebraically. I'm like a times b equals a plus b. Why don't I call those a's and b's x's and y's? So we could say x times y equals x plus y. And this is telling us which spots line up coordinate-wise with their x coordinate times their y coordinate, equaling their x coordinate plus their y coordinate. And thus this contains all the solutions to our question of, if we didn't require positive integers, are there any other things like this? 2 numbers that multiply to the same thing they add to. And in this episode, we are talking about sets of numbers. Some would call what I'm referring to as a multi-set. And the way we're going to actually write this in the episode is just that's a set 2, 2. And if I write the set 1, 2, 3, we're just going ascending order. Same thing as set 3, 2, 1. I'm just writing them ascending, but the order doesn't matter. A set here is basically referring to a collection of numbers. This collection has the property that its sum of its elements equals its product of its elements. Same with this one. Same if we don't require them to be positive integers with all of the points on this graph. We have 0, 0, the trivial 0 times 0 equals 0 plus 0. We have 2, 2. Right there, that tells us 2 times 2 equals 2 plus 2. This, there on the graph, is this. What else do we have? You may have noticed in the last stream I gave an example that was 3 times 1.5 equals 3 plus 1.5. They're both 4.5. Now this isn't going to show us the 4.5, it just shows us the elements that feed into multiply correctly. And let's see if it's right. Ding! 3, 1.5. Also, we know 1.53 is going to be on there, because I could have flipped them. What else is on there? 4 and 4/3. 5 and 5/4. See a pattern going there? Well, you could also try and solve this algebraically. Try and solve for one of these variables in terms of the other. That's something I do quickly in the episode, and that tells us algebraically which things work or don't. Remember how I said one of the numbers couldn't be 1, though? That wouldn't make sense, because you can't have a number times 1 equal itself plus 1? We can notice that here. There's no points on that line. It's an asymptote. Y can't be 1. What about X? Sorry, X. Asymptote also. X also can't be 1. Anything else you want? You want some solution to -2 times something equals -2 plus that same thing? Here you go. The answer is -2 times 2/3 equals -2 plus 2/3. We could also deduce that if you had solved for one of these in terms of the other and plugged it in. So, like I said, that's going to be a minute or two out of the episode I'm doing. That's fun to think about, but my questions for you, for any thinkers who want to set their brain to, a lot of channels really leave the gaps for the viewers to fill in. I feed you guys a lot of answers because I think just hearing facts is good too. But here's a case where I'm going to feed you the answer in 2 days. If you want a challenge in the meantime that is really good for your brain, that I recommend, that is similar to the type of challenge I have done to train my brain, here are 2 challenges. One of them is, how could I try and figure out what's going on here with 3 variables for 3 numbers that have the same sum as product on a 2D graph? The other question is, if I were to restrict this to positive integers, remember how I found some stuff was too big or small to work, and this only worked? Try and play a similar game with level 4 or 5 or 6. Try and find 4 numbers or 5 numbers or something whose sum are equal to their product, but positive integers. That's the more restricted challenge, and actually leads to most of the episode's topic. Is, the first half of the episode has a bit about these other rational or irrational solutions that work to these, but the second half of the episode and the main thesis relates to those classic identities with positive integers, like 2 times 2 equals 2 plus 2, and 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 1 times 2 times 3. Those are the ones you want more identities of. Those classic, awesome sounding connections that are base independent, don't matter how you write your numbers. This entire episode, isn't reliant on base at all. If we had written the numbers differently, everything would still be exactly the same in the episode. So I think personally it's an under-researched topic because sounds like such a simple question that there are still open questions. I'll mention in the episode they're unsolved. And it sounds like a simple question of a link between addition and multiplication. Which sets of positive integers have the same sum as product? So that is Sunday's rabbit hole. And those are 2 questions that I highly recommend trying to think about in the meantime, which are sort of just like a little puzzle. What lives on level 4 or 5? Or how would you go about with finding a whole batch of solutions, including irrational things, on something like level 3? I'll give you one fun clue, which is on level 3, we do have, another whole web of an infinite amount of solutions. One of which is, if I want them all to be the same, the square root of 3. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 times square root of 3 equals square root of 3 plus square root of 3 plus square root of 3. This actually is part of that pattern too, in a way. This is like first root of 2, first root of 2, second root of 3, second root of 3, second root of 3. See if you can figure out what would be next. But also what would live in that realm if we didn't make them all have to be equal. They are allowed to be equal, so some would call what I'm referring to a multi-set. I've seen it referred to as that, or just as the classic term set, which needs clarification anyways. It's a term used for many things. So, that's a little clue of the episode. Those are some puzzles. Let me check our chat. Love you all. How's the internet been, by the way? We getting any glitches? All right, let me go up a bit. So, we had some glitches at the beginning, not anymore. Someone asked ChatGPT and they gave a wrong answer, that you are allowed to put here. Those numbers have a sum of 7 and a product of 8 that ChatGPT apparently said. So wrong answers from ChatGPT are allowed. The only reason I don't want you to comment it here, normally I love comments that are extensions of what I'm talking about. Right now it's just I want it to be an open puzzle that, you know, if you see the solution for 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever, then you don't get the chance of doing the puzzle yourself. I'm going to show it right to your face on Sunday, so I want to give people a little chance. And someone asked if I'm a math magician. It sounds like a kind of cheesy term, but I'm down. Yeah, I like magic. I like math. So I wouldn't, you know, use that when introducing myself to someone at a party, but I guess it fits me. And let's see. Someone wonders cubic equation stuff, and yeah, you could look at some things like that to try it out. When did I last have a bath? Not only did I shower yesterday, I showered because I got sprayed with a hose before and got some probably burnt clock on myself. And yes, that's because the latest episode, after 20 minutes of pure math, I did feel obligated to include a little fire. So that will be in the end of the episode as well. Make sure to watch the whole thing to catch all the math and a little bit of chaos. Like I told you, late grade Demotro and the late grade combo classroom get a little more unhinged. However, you guys heard of alignment charts? So, you know, let me just graph what regions would be on here so we can show sections. So let me see. How am I going to do this? X equals 0. I'm just going to make some lines on different sectors to give myself a little chart. So one of the classic things that obviously it's one of those things that like take it with a grain of salt. It's fun if you treat it playfully. If you think it's an important thing, that might be weird. It's not an actual scientific thing, but it's a very fun way of categorizing things. Is you have this sort of alignment chart where things on this end have one trait, things on that have the opposite trait. Same with up or down, and then you get a little box of options. And one of the most classic is whether you are lawful, neutral in that case, or well, that's this. Sometimes I put it this side. So lawful on this side, maybe. I forget which side. Neutral versus chaotic on this side. And then up to down is like you are good, neutral, or evil. Now it sounds like kind of simple and cheesy and weird, and you'd mostly probably use it to define like characters in a cartoon or something, or you know, maybe a movie characters or something. Even those get hard to be cartoonish enough to fit one of the extremes. But when I asked my friends, or when it first came up, when my friends mentioned it to me like on a hike long ago or something, my instinct and my answer was, well, they asked what I thought I was. And I said, oh, of course I'm chaotic good. Everyone would want to be chaotic good. And they're like, no, not everyone's default is to want to be chaotic good. That's just you and some people. And I was like, nah, everyone's got to want to be chaotic good. But it sunk in over time that, you know, I had friends who even semi-jokingly identified as something like lawful evil, or completely other ends of that spectrum of possible boxes. But I guess up here we would have maybe actually chaotic good would be in a corner. I'm definitely on one of the extremes for sure. But I have always strived to be in that chaotic good box. I thought all humans kind of wanted to be, but I guess not. I guess it's only some people. Not everyone needs to be chaotic. We can all try and be good here. I want you all to try and be good. You don't all have to try and be chaotic, although I'm probably going to be. But that's really where our vibe of Convo Class is going for, is our chaotic good. And that's part of the chaotic experiments that I've worked that I put in the title of the last stream that crashed. this was going to be mentioned within the stream that had chaotic in the title, because I called the last stream something about how my chaotic experiments are working. And it was about how we passed 92,000 combo lords subscribed here within grade -1 of me building this out of the dirt. And one of those other experiments is, will letting myself become this wild personification of Demotro to the extreme and letting myself do my teaching in life that way achieve chaotic good? And I think we've achieved some chaotic good vibes so far, so we're going to continue on that track. And by good so far, I haven't had the chance to do anything hugely charitable. I've given away a lot of free knowledge, so that's good for the world. Hopefully, as things go on, I'll be able to do even more charitable things. If I ever got rich for some reason, it would all go toward giving people food and education and things like that. I don't need much money. So, let's see what else we got here. Oh no, you guys couldn't see the screen any of that time. I'm sorry. I didn't check the chat at all. So, hopefully some of that made sense. That was really completely screen dependent. I'm sorry, guys. I really need some sort of tech thing going on here. I need a tech genius helping me out behind the scenes. If anybody who lives near the Bay Area ever wants to help me out, you can always let me know, because we need more combo assistance. And so, sorry that the screen wasn't going that whole time. Hopefully some of that made sense. Somehow I have 13 of you still along for the ride here. So, someone mentioned they sleep on their bed, which is printed with a prime number. That's interesting. I have some equations written on my walls, which are some cool graph shapes, and I want to write more cool ones on the walls here, like I have on my also green shed wall near my thing. And then I purposefully left a little square near my bed over there. I don't know if you can see it. White. When I painted the room green, I left a little square next to my bed white. And I was like, that's because I'm going to put some important reminder to myself there that is going to make me feel alive and happy and engaged when I wake up, or when I'm going to bed, or when I'm tossing and turning at 2 a.m. I might see that and try and get an image that can somehow awaken me and remind me of the good parts of life and the motivation. And because I have a lot of anxiety and other stuff in between. But that's hard to do. Like, if you have some reminder, it ends up fading into the backdrop. It ends up being something that you're used to seeing there so much that you take it for granted and ignore it. So I couldn't figure out what to put there. So I'm going to put some sort of reminder to myself by the bed, but I haven't figured out how to get it right in a way that I won't let it slip into the backdrop, and it'll constantly almost pop me out of some fake reality in my head into a better reality, because we might live in many realities. So someone said a second monitor. Yeah, I have chat on my phone, but normally my policy here is, since I like making the videos digestible for future watchers, even the live ones, and I like putting timestamps of, like, this was a sector where I was talking about a topic, then this was a sector where I was talking about Matt, or then where I was talking with the chat. I like to not look at the chat for a while, which improves the videos to have sectors that are a topic, then a chat. However, that bites me in the other end sometimes, because then I don't notice when I do dumb things like leaving the screen on my face. So, we will have more tech assistance over time. I've somehow gone from having nothing to being able to hire a camera guy a few days a week. Hopefully in a grade or two, we'll have someone over here for the live streams as well. So, thank you all for joining me. Can't answer all of the little questions or thoughts, but you are all superbly awesome. Someone also did mention one I'm going to mention, which is that the sum of 3 tangents can equal the product of 3 tangents. And if you look into triangles, this could help you with the 3 case. Now, what's interesting there is that there's a whole different way you could say the origin story of why 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 1 times 2 times 3 is true among the other ones not having an equal sum in product. Why is that 3 numbers that do that when other ones don't have that trait? Well, there's other ways of explaining it. One is an infinite family that I'm going to explain in this episode on Sunday that makes it secretly just level 3 in this infinite family, and the 2 times 2 equals 2 plus 2 is level 2 in the family. And that's sort of my puzzle to you guys in the meantime, is what is the family and what is further. And it's a great logic puzzle for the brain. And like I said earlier, don't comment if you get it. Leave it for people to think about. And the other way you could see 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 1 times 2 times 3 that I mentioned was it's a merger of triangular numbers and factorials. They line up at the third one, each equaling 6. But there's other ways too. One of which is beautiful, is that 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 1 times 2 times 3 shows up in the 3, 4, 5 right triangle. Now, that will come up at some point. I'll do an explanation. But the reason I've held off on making an explanation on that is there's already a really good video about it. And when I make a video, I want it to be something new. So if there's another video about a topic, I'm only going to make mine about that topic if it's saying something different, or, my own unique connection or phrasing or discovery or whatever. So there's one video that's already really good about this that covers a lot of the cool ground. That normally, it's not good for a channel to recommend other channels, but I have to recommend that you guys, when you're not watching Combo Class, you watch the channel Mathologer. Now, when people think of other great math channels, the first one that usually comes up is 3 Blue 1 Brown, and I agree, that's one of the greatest ones. I support him on Patreon, and I don't have much money. I support the Mathologer guy too. They are 2 of the greatest channels on YouTube. However, Mathologer is super underrated. I think he's at least as good of a channel as 3 Blue 1 Brown in a different way. Less visually unique, maybe, but his videos sometimes might be over your head because they're like learning from a textbook, but in a fun YouTube form. Well, you got to be in the right mood to consider it fun, maybe, but I consider it fun. And it is sometimes like a brick wall of info that you have to watch a few times to understand, or you have to even wait a year to rewatch and understand. But I think that's good for the brain. So I recommend everyone sometime later check out Mathologer's video about a way that 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 3 times 4 times, or equals 1 times 2 times 3 shows up in the 3, 4, 5 right triangle. Completely different than the family of equations we're going to talk about. But like, as far as I remember, I don't even think he mentions that in the video, but it's a brilliant other thing related to that identity, because 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 1 times 2 times 3 is going to show up all sorts of places. It's beautiful, and it's part of why 6 is the most underrated number and should be the base number we count in. The one other question I did want to answer from before was... One sec. What was it? The other one I was going to answer is that, am I going to talk about my video game ideas? Now, I don't know if I've mentioned much having video game ideas. Maybe I've mentioned that, the most I would have mentioned that is saying, I don't play games much. I'm more interested in the design of games than playing games. Like, I'll sometimes watch video essays about a game because I'm interested in how you would make the structure in a game. The game map, the inventory, what connects to what type of puzzle-based things especially. And really, let me see if I can grab an example here. One of the only games that I really loved throughout childhood were the games from this one company that made point-and-click adventure games, which are the type of game that some people find really boring because it's not like you're running around shooting in 3D. It's like you have a set of options. Like, what am I going to click on? There's like 20 or 100 things you could click on, And those each have like a particular, maybe it goes to your inventory if you already have the right item, or maybe you can move it somewhere and you have to move it the right place, or maybe it just makes a noise when you click it, or whatever. And those can be really artistic in their own right if you decide, I'm going to make it a little story. I'm going to make it have fun with the little puzzles. I'm going to try and have, often they work well with inventory-based puzzles. And maybe I'll make like a good vibe of the little rooms you travel back and forth between. And most interesting to me, you need to come up with a somewhat maze-like structure. The structure of where the paths go reminds me of if you made a choose your own adventure book that was able to loop back on itself a lot more. And it relates to a structure that is in one of the fiction books I'm working on finishing. One of the things that I'm most proud of and excited about getting finished is some fiction books I'm writing that do involve a lot of math, but they are fiction. They're not a textbook. I will write textbooks separately, but the fiction books will probably come first, or maybe the Threvens and Throds book, which is sort of textbook-like. But one of these fiction books that I'm trying to work on finishing does have that structure, where it's a choose-your-own-adventure, but you're not picking the story, you're picking just what part of it you look at next, because a lot of things happen in an intertwined way. So you're just picking where you go as a viewer next in a somewhat maze-like structure. And designing a maze-like structure to me not only was reminiscent of like a choose-your-own-adventure book, because you could sort of call that similar to what this book is, even though you don't change the plot, but also similar to like a point-and-click adventure game map. And the ones that I really liked as a kid were this company. There's other good ones too, but this company, Humongous Entertainment. These games are really classic. Maybe I'll play them on Twitch or something someday. I don't like showing stuff on this YouTube channel that has like any type of copyright stuff, because I just like love my YouTube channels and don't want them to get in trouble. I don't really care if any of my other social media gets in trouble. And so but my YouTube ones, if anyone from YouTube ever watches, I love you. I will, work with you guys. I love YouTube. But those games, maybe I'll play them on like Twitch or something. They were a big part of my childhood. I never got into gaming, but I have a nostalgic thing in my head for like the realms, the different rooms you'd be in those, and the maze-like structure that connected different things and inventory items. It also relates to something I will tell you more philosophically about in the future that I call clue theory. And me and my friends used to do this thing where we would go looking for clues. And some people called it analyzing trash, because some of the clues looked like what some would call trash. But basically what we would do is when we were out in nature or hiking, in certain areas, there's a lot of weird art in the marina areas near where I live. Art mixed with trash, mixed with forgotten possessions, mixed with possible items you might want to pick up, mixed with all sorts of weird things. And so looking for clues and even items once in a while that would tell you little stories, even if the story you told about it was, of course, a silly hypothesis, was this interesting way of like analyzing the interconnectedness and synchronicity of things. And I'll explain more in the future about how to look for clues, Demotro style, in the future. It also will somewhat come up in one of the fiction books that I'm writing, because not the one that's a maze-like structure, but another one of them does involve detectives. So, as far as video game ideas, I have designed maps for video games. I would love to design a video game in the future if I had to do none of the thinking about how to make the programming work, and my job was to make the map and the puzzles and the inventory and things like that. So I do have ideas for games someday that would be fun. Don't know if I'll ever get to those. I have many, many goals. And before I ever try and make a video game, I'm definitely going to try and publish a few books, a few musical albums, and be a few grades deeper in this combo class thing. So we'll see. I don't know. I got a lot of ideas. So someone's wondering if you can move a knight on a chessboard in each and every square without going to the same square again. Well, if we look up something called a Knight's Tour, we can see shapes that sort of do things like that, where the Knight's Tour hops across a chessboard in a very pretty way. These are some Knight's Tours, and seeing how many of them or which types exist on sizes of board is something mathematicians research sometimes. I mean, some mathematicians. Look at some of these cool ones there. Some of them have just really interesting shapes. Look at these possible ones. Now, here's the thing, though. If I'm trying to start from, say, one corner and end up on the opposite corner as my last hop, that will be impossible. And that's because of what's called a parity argument, with the black and white having this even and odd-like phenomena, where when there's an even amount of hops, you end up on the same color, because the knight always changes color. So since the knight changes color with any move it makes, an even amount of hops will get you on the same color. And so there are certain squares that beginning on one and ending on one of the same color would be impossible, because to do that would require 63 hops, an odd number, and we said it takes an even number to get to the same color. So using that argument with what's called parity, which means like even or oddness basically, and sometimes is applied to like the black or white tiles on a chessboard, for example, things with a binary-like state that involve whether they're even or not. Well, you can prove certain spots are impossible for them. But as these shapes show, if you're allowed to hop everywhere and return to the same square, which is actually the goal of these ones, you can make really cool shapes. Shout out to whichever authors designed this website. It is called mayhemmatics.com. So shout out to these guys and to whoever designed these, to these names. Oh, check it. Euler. Euler's everywhere. He even did this. What did Euler not do? And to people who are like, oh, probably something like complex numbers, that's probably too new. Wrong. Euler played with similar stuff to that. Euler's identity is all about complex numbers. So yeah, this dude, 1750s, still haven't seen a better mathematician. And there's great ones, you know. There are people who do amazing work in math. You know, we've had brilliant minds since then. Mathematically doesn't equal to 25. And it is a trick. You know, if you try and go a digit at a time, you're like 2.5. That gives me 225. But you can't go a digit at a time from the left. So, really, you got to think, what's half of 500? Okay, that's 250. We're already more than that number. But it is a funny mystery when you look at it. Throws you off. 550 over 2 looks like 225 at first. Similar to how 57 looks prime. It's not. It's digits add to a three-even number, therefore it must be three-even. Someone would like to hear me talk about mazes. Yeah, you want to know something funny? So, a lot of my modern current interests, which show up as themes in my art, in my writing, a lot of the themes that you'll see have already been iterated in Combo Class. My writing contains fire and water and clocks and dice. Other themes I haven't had the chance to iterate into Combo Class yet that you'll see in my writing. And mazes have always been one of the themes, and like some other themes in my life, it's sort of funny. I'll have something I'm really into working into my art and my show and such, and I'll be like, did this just emerge in the past couple years when I got this lab coat and started going by Demotro more often and so on? And then I was like, no, wait. I have a flashback to some moment where I was really into that at a younger age. And one of those things was mazes. where I was like, okay, I really like mazes. And I had this flashback where I remembered in 7th grade, and this must have been part of why I didn't get on this valedictorian list. Now I'm putting together all the pieces. So one story I want to tell you guys sometime is in middle school, they called valedictorians the like super honor roll students, which meant you had gotten an A in every class. And I had gotten that. I had a somewhat easy time at school, to be honest. And so even in high school, when I was sort of slacking off, I was able to get A's and B's. But in middle school, I was a little more like must do good at school, and I got only A's, except for one B plus in the last semester of 8th grade, which here is right before you graduate. So they were already training me as part of this group for how to give this valedictorian speech. And then they told like me and one or two others, they're like, oh, by the way, you're not actually part of the group. You got a B plus in a class. That doesn't count. You needed straight A's. It's like, what? And back then that like hurt a bit. Now I don't value my self-worth on things like that hardly at all. But back then it was like, oh, I was going to get this award and I don't get the award anymore. And so that was annoying. But I mean, I got over it very quickly, but it was a bit annoying. And now that I'm putting together the pieces, some of the reasons why I didn't get an A in that class and I got a B plus were that I was bored in the class. I'd had the same teacher in 7th and 8th grade, and I started to feel a little more free to like do my own things in between. Like I brought a Rubik's Cube for a couple weeks when I was really into that. And then other kids wanted to play with the Rubik's Cube, and we would be secretly passing around a Rubik's Cube, and the teacher got mad. And another reason he got annoyed was I would make mazes in the class when I was bored. I would draw these mazes. And there was this kid next to me who was actually a year younger than me, because it was what you could call a combo class, which is a nickname some people call those classes that have multiple grades. Sort of like, that's not why I named the show Combo Class, although it works because there's a lot of different ages here. Not why I named it, though. I've just liked the word combo for a while, and combinations of stuff, and what I call combo theory. But in that class, I was drawing the mazes, and then this kid who was a grade younger, who I thought was like kind of like a cool kid. I had this weird idea in my head back then, even though I hung out with a large group of friends, that since we were kind of geeky, that everyone thought I was super lame, and that a lot of the other people were like cool kids, no matter what group they hung out in, and I was like a non-cool kid. But that was just my brain being dumb and over-analyzing stuff. When I look back at it, it was like, oh man, people probably thought I was one of the more popular people over all those years. Why didn't I let myself realize that? Why was I so like self-conscious? But so this kid who was like, I thought was like a cool kid, like I thought about a lot of kids, wanted to do some of my mazes because I was drawing these mazes, and I was like, oh, I'm making such intricate mazes that I'm going to copy some of them at home. And I think I even copied some of them in this thing. I was a student teacher because I was a year ahead in math, and so they had me student teaching along with these other kids, and that's when I had a calculator heist that I've mentioned. So all of this story kind of goes along with the calculator heist that I've mentioned, that I'm waiting to make a whole episode about until I go in my attic, which is up there. You see an attic up there, and figure out where that old calculator I stole is. Do not steal things. No, not a recommendation. So, amidst that whole year, I copied, either at home or in that student-teacher thing, a bunch of my mazes. And I want to find those mazes because they were cool, and I have copies of them, I know, because I was worried, like, I drew them in pencil, and the pencil would fade, and I wanted other kids to be able to try them. And what I did is I got first I was just doodling random mazes, but then I realized a really fun way to do it is to take a sheet of graph paper and only go along the lines. And it was a really interesting challenge. How can I make a hard maze where I have to only go along the lines and see which ones I connect or don't on graph paper? And I drew a bunch of those and printed them, and I was handing them out in the class, and that's probably part of why I got the B+. And that was one of those times where it's like, why did I think that I was the kid everyone thought was boring and lame and lonely and stuff? It was like, I was the kid handing out the mazes. But in any case, the mazes now, even though I like the idea of coming back to design visual mazes. Maybe I'll get into that some month in the future. Right now, the way I'm working on it is in the context of that Choose Your Own Adventure-ish book. And the idea there is, how can I interlink things in a way that the story is just confusing enough? The bits I want to be vague until you decode them are like that. And the bits that would be too confusing, get enough clarification no matter how you go through the maze. It's meant to be a little confusing, but to all make sense once you've decoded it. And so, as you go through this maze, I'm trying to make certain sectors in it come later to the viewer, or certain sectors of it only come after the viewer has encountered another certain thing, yet to give the viewer freedom to wander around. I'm also trying to somehow prevent the viewer from just being like, I go to the first option each time because I assume that's the right way. And then if the first loops me back, I go to the second option each time. Like, I'm trying to prevent people from just assuming there's a right order. They're supposed to just go to the first choice. It's not a right order. I'm designing it in a way that you're supposed to wander the maze by choice. You're gonna have to repeat which bits you've gone to because it's a circular maze. There's not actually dead ends in this Choose Your Own Adventure. Everything loops around, but to understand everything, you're gonna have to pass through a few things twice. So I really hope I can get that book right. And written. I know. So mazes are a cool idea, and I would like to incorporate maze-like puzzles on comboclass.org, which I own but haven't launched yet. Don't go there yet, it's nothing. But that will launch at some point in grade -2 probably, because once I have a little more resources and am able to spend time working with people and hiring people maybe to implement little math puzzles and stuff, there will be a maze-like structure on comboclass.org. You're going to have to, some pages lead to other pages, some pages might be hard to find. And in a way, it's going to be similar to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is one more thing that reminds me of a maze, a sort of circular one, because it doesn't really have dead ends. And so in Wikipedia, I'm like, okay, what if I want to know about Leyland numbers? Okay, here, what if I want to know about this example of it? What's 100 do? Okay, what if I want to know about this? And so it's sort of like a maze. And sometimes, like my book, you got to loop around in the Wikipedia maze a few times on the concepts to understand one, if it's a field you don't know much. So, love mazes as a concept. And, our life is somewhat like a fun little choose your own adventure sometime. I might even give you guys crazy choices to vote on that I'll go with. I like surprises. So there might be future seasons where I'm like, here are 3 options for where I'm going to take a vacation and film at. You guys get to pick. Or should I shave my head or not? You guys get to pick. And maybe we'll choose your own adventure it up a bit. I also like the idea of I want to do live streams that look like a little point-and-click adventure game, like these, where you have your inventory in little bubbles at the bottom, and I can have certain items in a backpack, but on the stream, I need someone else running the stream. They have little bubbles with my inventory and a little map of where I'm at the marina or wherever, showing the options, and then you and me can pick where we go next on the map. And see if there's any inventory I need to use of mine or any inventory to pick up or to analyze. That would be a dope stream. But I don't have anyone helping me with the stream right now, and I don't know if my streaming is going to work out in nature. I don't know if I'm going to have enough connection there. Probably be better out in nature on my phone than it was today out in the normal classroom. Someone's asking about Ramanujan versus Euler. I already went into that before, but I'll give my really quick answer here again, which is Euler achieved more things, but he was alive for a lot longer. Ramanujan died really young. And so if he had gotten a full lifetime, who knows? With what they did, can't beat Euler. Also, as far as favorites, I would say maybe equal to me, because Ramanujan embodies some combo class-like vibes. He learned differently. He thought outside the box, partially because he lacked formal training. Maybe I, do it unconventionally more on purpose. Some of his was, he had to based on his circumstances. But by having to sort of prove all of the things himself and do a lot of stuff from scratch, He came up with these brilliant, out-of-the-box new things, too smart for most people to even understand the truth of or the importance of, until this guy, G.H. Hardy, acknowledged it, brought him to the mathematical community, and he died way too young. So, who knows if Ramanujan had gotten a full life with what they did. I'm sticking with my answer that Euler is the greatest we've gotten. Thank you also for all the ideas. Someone's saying arranging the furniture in the class to become a maze. I have a better idea for you folks, which is that you guys help me expand combo class big and big. And if for some reason I ever have enough money to do this, my front yard has 3 houses. And there are 2 smaller houses in the front, and then a slightly bigger, not much bigger house that my family owns, mostly my parents. You know, I live with my parents and brother. And if I ever, for some reason, got rich after spending all the money on combo class and charitable things, and for some reason I still had a bunch of money, I would buy those front 2 houses and turn the zone in between. I've already told my parents and brother that if we do this is, if that ever happened, it's happening, and they're down with it too, that we turn the whole front yard that you guys have seen once in a while, that right now I share with those neighbors, so you've mostly just seen like part of it, into a hedge maze. So then to enter from the front, from the street, you would have to pass the front 2 houses and then go through a hedge maze, and one path of the hedge maze would lead to the combo class in the back, another would lead to the main house, others would lead to just like a little grove with a bench or whatever. So my dream, that probably not going to achieve it because I invest all my money in combo class and not saving for real estate, but if for some reason I was rich someday, I would buy those front 2 houses and make the garden a hedge maze. So that sounds pretty sick, doesn't it? So people have similar stories of stealing calculators and teachers getting mad about Rubik's Cubes in class. Yep. I was, a little rascal Demotro even in those grades. So the calculator stealing story will... Oh, yeah. Sorry, it's a weird angle. The calculator stealing story will come when I find the associated prop. Maybe I will also revisit the school. I probably won't try and get back into the storeroom where I got the calculator. I think that was a one-time thing. But... maybe I'll do it like outside the school. I'll start the story. There's a few episodes that I want to put on the main channel that are more story based, because I've had some crazy stories from my life, but I want to try and make them visual in some way and interesting and engaging, as a way of not just being like I'm sitting down and telling a story for 10 minutes. And so one of the main ways to do that is to revisit the location where something occurred, and to give you guys a few clues of a few that may occur. We may revisit, and these are field trips we'll take someday in the combo class. We may revisit a spot where I was chased by a swarm of wasps once. That's a story. We may revisit a spot where I fell through a thin ice on a lake once. That's a story, but I need to do it when I revisit the zone, when it's frozen over, and I happen to be at that lake near my friend's cabin. And calculator stealing story, and then we got some darker stories. Those are some of the more playful stories, believe it or not, even though they involve falling through thin ice and stuff. Believe it or not, falling through thin ice was not the closest to death I've come. Someone said they love my hair. Someone else said, yes, shave. You'll see my plans for my hair in the finale. So I decided that I'm not going to do anything until the finale. You'll see what I'm going to do then. But for now, people keep telling me in comments, like, you look homeless. And I'm like, that's okay. Comments help. And then, people, sometimes friends and family are like, wow, your hair and beard's looking kind of long, man. And I'm like, yeah, I know I look kind of chaotic these days. It's the late grade -1. In early grade -2, maybe I'll look cleaner. But you'll see the details in maybe starting from a little earlier than the finale, or maybe in the finale. That's some March stuff, is cutting the hair. That's not some February stuff. So, yeah, I guess it's just going to keep growing for a while. I'm not sure when the last time I shaved this kind of short, but we could probably measure it by videos. If you went back maybe on the TikTok when I was posting combo class videos and see like when it was shorter. I don't know. I forget the last time I shaved it, a few months ago. And someone mentioned Galois also died too young and was also brilliant. And some more cool thoughts about mazes. And a lot of cool thoughts. So we got some long hair fans, we got some short hair fans. Similar to the chaos, which goes in a cycle, you may notice a little cycle where for some grades, and may not always hold because it's fun to break patterns after setting them up, but one of the patterns that you may see a lot of the time will be I may have shorter hair in the earlier grade and longer hair in the later grade, going along with me just letting things be wilder in the later grade. The funny thing, though, is that it's what I call controlled chaos. And because as I go crazier in terms of not caring as much about letting things go wild in the later grade, I also have part of me that cares about getting things very correct or right in a certain way in the late grade. Like the episodes on the main channel, and those often are connected to the streams and shorts. There are certain ones that I really want to fit in grade -1, and I'm still going to have to see exactly how I'm going to use those last 3 episodes that aren't the finale and aren't the one that I'm dropping Sunday. I have episodes lined up for them, but there's some ideas that just didn't make it in grade -1. They're too grandiose. They'll have to come in grade -2. In any case, love you all for joining me. Thank you so much. And some of the things that we are going to look at today were already done, so we're probably just going to do a little chatting in the room for a minute. And then later today, what I'm going to get to is editing that episode that you guys can feel free to think about those questions in the meantime. If anyone has any more thoughts or stuff in the meantime, I'll hang out here for a little bit because I'm not in a rush to end the stream, but we don't have any crazily important topics in mind. No numbers in the 92,000s I needed to talk about because I couldn't find any good ones in that range. I was going to possibly talk about these things called polydivisible numbers, but I think we'll save those for another stream and just put these cool looking Knights tours back in the background. So stay tuned for some really cool stuff. Let me actually make sure I have some other good updates for you guys ready. Some of the other updates, and I'm just going to make myself big for the rest of the stream. No, that's not the right one. Here we go. Some of the combo class updates, apart from what I've let you guys know about, like the episodes that are coming, are, like I mentioned in a stream or two before, I've been destroying clocks faster than I've been accumulating them. So I figured some of you guys might have some broken clocks. I'm going to go clock hunting on my own too, like I've gone before, thrift stores and stuff. But I also am going to start a P.O. box in a week or two, sometime before March, which will be here in California, Bay Area of California. And if any of you have any broken or working, not digital, analog looking clocks, or dice are acceptable, or calculators are acceptable, get ready, which I use my soundtracks as beats in the main channel episodes. They're beats I've made over time. I have little versions of them I edit into the soundtracks. And yes, you will hear me rapping and singing and stuff over these songs at some point in the future. Slightly different versions of them. These are the soundtrack versions. But I will be posting those just for my Patreon people pretty soon. And it might be for like the $6 and up people. But I'll give it to all of you guys before long once I have a better edit of them. I'm just going to put the rough versions I currently have for the Patreon people. But some people have asked about the soundtracks. So if anyone really wants the combo class soundtracks, make sure you're on the $6 Patreon tier and those, or higher. And those will be coming this weekend. And also, thank you in general to all my Patreon people. Normally, in the future, it's going to be more limited of whose names I can thank, and it might be more like bonus content people get. But I've been putting all the names in some descriptions, and I'm going to put all the people's names in the finale somewhere, like on a back whiteboard or something that I show. So if you want your name in a whiteboard on the finale, subscribe to any tier on there. And the supporters on there are great because they have helped me make this to the point where I might be able to quit most of my students in March, which is still risky, going to make me live at home for a while, but it's, hopefully I'm going to make an increasing amount of money from ads or Patreon that will help me be okay hiring people more often to assemble a team to do all this tech stuff and to keep the episodes coming at slightly higher audio and visual quality, but good old Demotro. So thank you all. Everyone's commenting clock-related things, and that's always fun to talk about. We will have a lot of clock-related episodes as we accumulate more and more clocks. That is a theme that we are just at the beginning of our clock quest. I once promised as many clocks as I got the comment clock on a video. That was actually on TikTok, but I made a YouTube video that referenced this on the main channel and included the explanation. And I promised essentially about 400 clocks or more before I cut it off. I stand by that promise that at some point I will have 400 clocks. So, let's get there. And, of course, in addition to clocks, I don't spend that much money on clocks, is why I want to start the P.O. box, because broken clocks work. So, really the money is going toward audio and visual equipment and such. The other thing I like to spend money on, which is cheap, is used math books. You can find many math books online for, including shipping, less than $10. And if it's a book on a topic you like, you might get a great $10 out of that book. I don't eat food out much. I don't buy clothes or anything much, but I do love buying me some math books. And just as an example, here we got stacks and stacks that I haven't known where to find to put them, that I'm still reading some of. Stacks and stacks. And one of the books that some people might want that I've recommended before, but I highly recommend to people who like my number theory type videos, to people who like my videos that are about like modular arithmetic or primes or stuff, or essentially, any question about whole numbers probably is one of these number theory, usually always right. And they give you the idea of topics and give you the right seed and start of the knowledge, and then you know what to look up or what connections to try and link. And so I recommend going through Wikipedia a lot too. I recommend also the math section on Wolfram Math World. It's called like Wolfram Math World. This is part of Wolfram Alpha. That's like a Wikipedia-esque section. I also recommend this book. And if anyone wants to read any books with me, you can get one of these and let me know in the Discord, because these are some of the number theory books that I haven't finished yet that I'm still reading. Are these ones. So those are some of the many books that I'm still reading. If you also want to grab some books that I might read in the future that I thought looked good, that I was like, this will probably give me some more good info in the future. Let's see, some of the ones I haven't been able to start yet include one about primes, one about Fermat's last theorem, and there's a 3-book saga. I have all 3 of them here, translations and commentaries that help you actually understand Euclid's Elements, one of the most fundamental math texts ever, but written in a time where they wrote math way different than us. For example, here is an example of what Euclid would write. He said, if there be 3 magnitudes, and others equal to them in multitude, which taken 2 and 2 together are in the same ratio, and the proportion of them be perturbed, then if x equali, the first magnitude is greater than the third, the fourth will also be greater than the sixth, if equal, equal, and if less, less. Now, what he's saying to that is this certain thing about ratios that we would write really differently algebraically. So it's really interesting. They thought of things much more as geometry than algebra. He describes numbers and his proofs about numbers, even about prime numbers, basically as being as if he's describing lengths of segments. So you need, a bunch of commentary along with it for them to decode it to you. So that's another one I'm going to dive through deeper at some point. I've read little bits of it, but if you just try and read Euclid's Elements with no translation, you might be pretty lost because it's coming from really older times. I mean, with no translation, you'd definitely be lost. But even like translated to English or whatever, without explanations of what it means when he's talking about these magnitudes and multitudes and stuff. And thank you all for the comments. I love you all so much. You really make me enjoy these streams, getting all sorts of nice comments and interesting thoughts. Don't really have time to jump into all of them. To ever mention that Combo Class was the clock all along. Well, there is a clock within Combo Class because everything moves within cycles, and we are seeing the clock within grade -1 right now. And on this clock, you can think of many of the changes of grade -1 to grade -2 as being similar in a weird way to when a clock after midnight starts calling things 1 again. But if the clock started at 0 on the top, not 12, then that was where the reset happened. Because clocks should not have a 12 on top. They should have a 0 on top. So, thank you all for the comments. Remember also, if you want to chat with me other places, and you can't support the Patreon in any way, I also go on the Discord whenever possible. I haven't had that much time before to go through all like the sub forums on there, or sub channels, whatever you call them. I don't even know the term. I'd never used Discord before we made a Combo Class one, but I love the Combo Class one. As soon as I have more time, once I quit some of my day job of my private students and stuff, I'm going to spend a lot more time just chatting with folks on that Discord, because that's always fun. And we need more fun, random stuff on the subreddit. Like some people posted some cool graphs. One fan posted a painting of me. That was so cool. Shout out to the fan who made a painting of me and put that on there. That is so cool. I'm going to show that right now just because it's so awesome. So, going to reddit.com/r/combo class. And yes, we're fine with imperfection. So some people post some graphs, but check out this. Someone painted me. That is so freaking cool. Got bubbles, and we got y = tan of x squared. So, people obviously don't need to go as far as doing a painting, but post some random weird memes or thoughts on that subreddit. Or if anyone wants to help spread the combo love, post some moment you thought was really interesting in some other subreddit or some Facebook group or whatever. If you think there's a math fact that fits anywhere weird, or some funny thing that happened on a stream or whatever. One thing I mentioned before that I'll say again is, if anyone wants to use any of my content in any shape or form, like posting clips of it as part of something, as their own thing, whatever you want to do with it, you can totally feel free. As long as you credit me and leave info that links to my channels, then you can use my stuff for whatever you want. It's, it's for the world. So, I think I'm going to log off pretty soon when I keep going down to look at where my comments are at or on the phone. I do need to get a second monitor or something maybe. That would be good so then I can handle what people are seeing on one and not make you see this weird vortex sometimes when I do that and weird transitional points. So, love you all so much. I'm going to get to work after I eat some food and work on some random stuff and maybe try and get out to some nature. I'm going to get to work on continuing the edit of this new episode coming out on the main channel soon. And let me just give you an idea of the episode. Will be called something related to how 2 + 2 = 2 × 2 and 1 + 2 + 3 = 1 × 2 × 3 are actually part of a cool infinite family. So, to anyone who wants some cool puzzles, check back to the part of this that I'm going to at some point timestamp for the viewers to think about. That's good for your brain. A lot of fun stuff to think about, or even like I used to love these logic puzzles and games and stuff by authors like this guy
Raymond Smulyan. Gotta have him around here somewhere. Raymond. Actually, yeah, I have all sorts of Raymond Smullyan's around here.
I love this guy Raymond Smulyan. This is just the start of it. So, a lot of good puzzle books there. Puzzles are good for the brain. So, not only is it a fun puzzle, but I don't know why there haven't been, that I've seen, any episodes about this topic from any big math creators yet. It seems like a really interesting, simple concept. What sets of numbers have the same sum and product? It's base independent. So, no matter how you write the numbers, is some trait that links certain types of number under multiplication and addition. Of course, you could ask your own extensions. So, also leave a comment, after the episode comes out. Leave a comment on it if you figure out anything about which sets of numbers have some other rule. Like, two numbers whose difference is their product or some other weird rule. So, gonna log off now. Love you all. Catch me on those places that are linked in here. If you missed some of the streams, I will timestamp them pretty soon. Hope you all have a super awesome day. And stay tuned for some more random fun in the next couple days on these channels, as well as that main episode coming maybe Sunday or so on the main channel. And we are past 92,000. We're on our way to 100,000, which is a bad number, or not bad, but just overrated number. Doesn't matter that much in our base. It doesn't matter that much apart from our base. So there's better numbers at that size, but that digit is going to be pretty cool because we're stuck in the base. So we're going for that digit. Thank you all for helping me with that. We're here to spread knowledge and love. And if somehow you guys help me get really big, we're going to use it for charity. And if after we help out a ton of charities, for some reason we're still rich, we'll make the hedge maze in the front yard. Okay. Regardless of all that, we're going to do some fun teaching and learning.